All right, everyone. Today we have with us Alan, who's a marketing leader where he's held both CMO and P&L GM roles across multiple companies. He coaches CMOs now, supports PE-backed companies as a fractional CMO, and advises on GTM strategy through his work at Demand Revenue. Since 21, he has helped more than 10 portfolio companies accelerate customer-led growth and value creation. He's also a certified GTM Partners Advisor, a company started by my dear friend, Sangram. Right. So, welcome, Alan. Great to have you here.
Thank you, Karan. It's great to be here, and I appreciate your invite. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Thrilled to be here.
Let's start by just a brief overview of your journey, right? For like various CMO, GM roles, founding Demand Revenue, becoming a GTM coach.
Sure.
Like, what were the key moments or experiences that shaped your journey so far?
Well, I started in finance, so I always get along very well with CFOs as a marketing person. That's really helped as I've had CMO and P&L general manager roles. I actually was CMO at 7 companies on a full-time basis and P&L GM at 3 companies on a full-time basis. A couple of those were CMO and P&L GM, division general manager. And then I took a turn and I went with Serious Decisions. Some of you may be familiar. Serious Decisions was a go-to-market advisory firm for the revenue functions, marketing, sales, product, and customer success. And there I had 2 roles. I mentored and coached chief marketing officers, over 100 of them across 6 years. And I also was responsible for all of their healthcare segments globally, since part of my background has been in healthcare. So I spent 6 years there. We were acquired by Forrester. I stayed on 2 years after the Forrester acquisition, but it wasn't the same fit in terms of what I was looking to do. So I left in February of 2021, and I started my own company, Demand Revenue. So I'm a solopreneur. And since then, I've been an interim CMO at 4 private equity portfolio companies. And I continue mentoring and coaching CMOs. And I've done projects for PE portcos, things like helping with renaming and rebranding, go-to-market alignment and transformations, Net Promoter Score 3.0 to create a remarkable customer experience, figuring out ICPs, stuff like that. So I have a variety of things I do, which is kind of a combination of sometimes I come on as an interim CMO, sometimes I help with projects, and sometimes I coach and mentor CMOs, which I love doing. And in terms of starting with go-to-market partners, and I've also known Sangram for years, ever since he was at Pardot. Great guy, Sangram and Brian. I've always been very connected with cross-functional alignment, because I see that's where a lot of companies fall down when marketing, sales, product, and customer success are not on the same page, and they need to be. And there's a huge economic benefit, revenue and profitability, of getting to and staying aligned, which I knew from Serious Decisions. And, I was exposed to so many models and frameworks there. The go-to-market OS that Go-to-Market Partners has was just an add-on for me, another go-to-market operating system that I really like. So I joined them a couple months ago as well. And I have access to their GTM OS, which I think is really well done. Yep. So that's the short version. Hopefully that.
Yeah, the short version itself has so much punch packed in it, right?
Thank you.
Jumping into that, like you become an interim CMO at, let's say, company X, right? Recommended by a PE partner or somebody else, right?
Yes.
What does the first 30, 60, 90 days look like for you?
The first 30 or 45 days, I learn. I interview, so I joined the ELT. So I interview each of the C-suite members, the board members, and all of the marketing folks. If I come on, let's say, as an interim CMO. And I ask them, what are you most proud of? What are you doing really, really well? And where do you think the gaps are? And I give them each 3 magic wishes. If you could change anything, what would they be? So the first probably 6 weeks. I do a lot of listening. I don't come on like a ton of bricks. I don't come on that, I know all the answers or any of that. I come on to learn and develop relationships, because I feel very strongly that, developing relationships is the most important thing, because if you don't do that, people won't listen to ideas and recommendations you have. So that's probably the first, let's call it 6 weeks. And then, as part of that process, I'll do an assessment of the company's infrastructure. So when I say infrastructure, that includes people, process, technology, data, analytics, pricing, and brand equity and reputation in the market. And I look at the strengths and the gaps in each of those areas, and then I begin to make recommendations, some quick wins on a short-term basis and some long-term. And in some cases, I'll put together a long-term plan working with a CFO on organization structure and competencies that the organization should build over time, and stage that out in a way that is reasonable to the organization.
Right.
Also look at benchmarks too. I have access to a lot of benchmarks as a yardstick.
Deep diving into that, right? Like, where do you see commonly the most scope for improvement? Like, is it ICP? Is it data? Is it like where do you often see like the low hanging fruits, like in terms of gaps?
Those are two big ones, because there are a few things. Like, companies, first of all, one big mistake I see is if there is a problem with sales or meeting the plan, that departments will blame each other, versus understanding that they need to be aligned from the top, and all the departments need to be aligned and together if they're going to be successful. Second thing is, companies may think they have an ICP. It may be in a PowerPoint presentation, but each department may think of the ICP differently. So you may have an understanding of what you think the ICP is, but sales needs to make their plan. They need to make their budget on a quarterly basis. So they may, bring anything on they can to make their budget. And these may be accounts that maybe they can acquire, but they may not be able to keep or grow. So, and then the other thing I see is companies over-rotate on demand on new business logos, not retention and growth of existing customers. And then, of course, because PE firms do a lot of M&A, mergers and acquisitions, I see a lot of dirty data, sometimes really filthy data, where there are a lot of Salesforce instances or marketing automation instances, and even some companies that can't get a good customer list. So, it's kind of like, you mentioned AI. AI can be really powerful with convergent thinking, summarizing what happened. But if you don't have the right data or the right processes, what AI will do for you is it'll speed up and accelerate your chaos.
Yeah.
If you don't feed it the right data and process. So those are really important things, which I think your firm probably focuses a lot on as well.
Yeah, no, I think ideal customer profile, we are going really deep. Let's talk about dirty data for a minute, right? Like, when you're saying the CRM data is dirty, we have seen like most organizations, 30 to 40% of that is stale, inaccurate, or missing, right? People just don't fill it. How do you advise companies on solving the dirty data problem?
I say simply, you have to make data cleanliness and accuracy a thing. You have to resource it. You can't think of it as something that's boring or it's the last thing we want to do. If you want your sales and marketing activities to be accurate and have a good foundation, you have to resource making data clean, relevant, timely, etc. And that takes investment. It takes, assigning someone and that works with the different departments to, in the different CRM systems and marketing automation systems to clean up the fields, clean up the data, make sure it's timely, it's accurate. There's no substitute for, digging in and there are a lot of tools out there and you can get vendors to help you, but you have to make it a priority.
Right. And And Alan, whose priority? Like, is that marketing, RevOps, sales? Who owns data?
It's for the CEO to determine that, but normally what I've seen, if there is a developed RevOps function, it could start there. Probably RevOps or marketing, depends on the organization design.
Right.
But if there is a strong RevOps function, it probably should be there.
Right.
And, to make sure that the organization is working on one set of data, one set of metrics, one set of KPIs, and they define consistently what good looks like.
Right. And we were talking just before the LinkedIn Live. You went to the CMO huddle. You went to Six Sense conference and several other events. Uh, we are just hitting in the holidays. What are top of mind issues for CMOs going into 2026?
Develop a close relationship with your CFO, not just at budget time, but meet with them frequently and solve problems together and speak the language of business, not, marketing speak and not, vanity metrics, but learn what the financials are of the business and be able to speak that way with the CFO, the CEO, and the board. That's one thing. Another thing is you can't just say we need to invest in brand or brand reputation. You have to translate what the benefits of doing that are in financial terms. Talk about things like being on short lists, having more at bats, having better win loss ratios, having more pricing power. All of those things are financial. And look at some of the research. One great study I just saw, Kerry Cunningham, who's now at Six Sense. Kerry and I used to work together at Serious Decisions. He just did a great study on buying behavior and how it's working. And actually, at the beginning of the buying process, companies have 5 vendors in mind that they've already known about because they know their brands. And they're going to pick one of those 5. And they're probably going to, and it's 80% likely they'll pick one of those 5. And it's over 70% likely that they'll pick the first one they reach out to. So if you're not investing in the 95% of companies that are not in market to build your reputation for when they do come in market, you've already lost.
Yeah.
You've already missed the boat. So that's something else. And a lot of talk about AI. I mean, over 90% of organizations are doing something with AI, but only 1% of those organizations think they're mature. And above anything else, AI is a people issue and a change management issue, and the companies that are more successful know that. And they're beginning to say, they may have a lot of different separate initiatives, but mostly they're not woven together into an overall AI governance strategy, which companies need to get to. It's still relatively early, but everybody's thinking about that. And one quote I liked, the new CEO of Six Sense said that go-to-market is going to change more in the next 5 months than in the last 30 years.
That's a big statement. And it's happening. Like, we see it all around us. Talking about this, right, Alan, you talked about AI. You recently wrote about the importance of finding skilled AI trainers, even for tech giants like Microsoft.
Yeah.
So what do you think AI training is? Why is it such a blind spot for GTM organization? And what separates companies that truly operationalize AI from those who are just experimenting? Like, how do you create these AI skill trainers, and how do you build this culture of AI adoption?
Well, there's some really excellent people out there that are doing this. That are helping for marketing and go-to-market organizations with their AI skills. So I think companies need to understand the change management aspects. And there may be a third of the people that won't, implement it the way you would want them to. It's a big change. And people need training. They also need a safe environment. They need an environment where they can fail quickly. I'll give you, one more quote I loved from one of those conferences. There was a presentation by a company called Comply, the CMO. And she used to work for a Richard Branson company.
Mhm.
And Richard Branson told his executive team that he met with weekly or monthly, each time we meet, I want you to give me at least one idea that would get you fired.
Right.
In terms of, he was engendering disruptive innovation, disruptive and out of the box thinking. And I think that's tremendous. And, that's the other thing that you have to combine with AI. AI is really good at summarizing what happened in the past, at convergent thinking, but it sucks at divergent thinking. It's not going to tell you what you need to change to be disruptive to the market. You need people to do that. So the people AI combination is really important to, leverage the power of AI, but also the human power to think differently. Does that make
Right.
sense?
Yeah, absolutely. No, that makes sense. And the thing is, like when you said uh, there are people or resources available for this transition, right?
Yes,
Could you name a few of those? Like what
I
would some
can.
of the, yeah.
So Lisa Adams has
Yeah,
done
wow.
a lot
Yeah.
with AI training. Nicole Leffer has done a lot with AI training. There's a person, Samantha Stark, who I met at one of these conferences at the Super Huddle. There are a few people that have done incredibly well
Yeah.
and helped many organizations. And this is really hot now. I know they're in big demand, and a lot of organizations are trying to retain them to train their people. But you have to. It's kind of like cleaning up data with
Yeah.
AI. You have to invest in your people. You have to give them a safe environment, and understand that a lot of it is people based and change management based.
Now, question, right? Like what's happening on the coding side? Like, uh, there's also a lot of replacement happening, saying, hey, some people will just not cut it in this AI world, and others will learn and migrate. And then they're going to be these newbies who are like born in the AI native world, like 25 something, who just start with that,
Yeah.
right? Customer success with Sierra, Decagon kind of going in the same direction. Do you see GTM going in that direction as well, where there'll be some people who will, like Lisa and others, who will become really relevant? There'll be some who will be left behind, and there'll be some newbies who will just disrupt it with new age thinking in the AI native world.
Maybe two comments with that. Really good question, Karan. So, um, first thing is, I asked the question at one of these conferences: how many people do you think may say they're with it, but really won't come along with it? And I asked that question a couple of times, and the answer I got was pretty consistent: about a third. About a third of people may not, just, and it's not based on age or anything else. It's just based on willingness and part of the change management process. Um, And also, if people were defining their organizations now, de novo, zero based, it would probably be different than the organizations that exist now. So the question is, how do you go through change management to modify your current organizations? One of the things that I know Lisa has done a number of times I've done a lot of work in marketing organization design for years, and many organizations I've helped through that and continue doing that. One of the areas she has helped with also is having AI bots or whatever you call them under each of the marketing functions and each of the marketing people. So your organization becomes a hybrid human/AI organization where the AI bots make each of the humans more productive in whatever you're doing, competitive intelligence, creative development, you name it. And I think that's going to be true of all the functions as organizations get better at figuring out the best and most appropriate implementation of AI. There are a lot of dangers too. You have to be careful. It hallucinates. It has done some terrible things that need to be fixed. Helping a teenager commit suicide. I heard. I mean, just awful. The worst thing I've heard. So and don't let AI set your strategy, or your competitors that are using the same LLMs will beat you to it. You
Yeah.
need humans to think differently. So I think that human AI interface and the change management is really, really quite critical.
And Aaron, like this is all such great info. Just building on this, right? So as organizations, you get some experts, uh, but they're still picking it up. if individuals in the organization, like, you keep hearing the CMO tenure is shrinking, it's below 18 months now. If I'm the CMO of a company, right, and I want to basically enable my team with resources saying, hey, these are the courses, or this is what you can do to become more AI enabled. This is how I'm going to present the vision of our AI org to the CFO, like you said. Uh, what would be the steps you would recommend? Obviously, trying to get a consultant is wise, but let's say you're not you're in, you're in a non-tech traditional industry somewhere in Ohio, right? And you still want to experiment with this.
Yeah.
What would be your advice to that?
First thing is just pick 2 or 3 things. Don't try to pick 10 things. Pick 2 or 3 things that everybody's going to get smart on. Resource some good training. Give your people the safe space to experiment and fail and try things. And I heard one presentation I really liked. Latney Conant, who's the CMO of Sixth Sense, made a
Yeah.
presentation, and she used an analogy of baking a cake. A lot of organizations may be experimenting with different, AI applications to do certain things, and those are all crumbs, and the crumbs may not be fitting together. And the next step is to bake a cake, get the crumbs to work together and organize them, and that's where probably fewer companies have been successful at doing that so far, but that's one of the next steps. But it starts with just trying a few tools, getting comfortable with it, and finding applications where AI can really help you, and learning how to become a better prompter to get the results that you're looking for, and how to check the output to make sure it passes the smell test, that it's realistic and it's accurate. So start slower with that. So it's kind of like crawl, walk, run.
Mm-hmm.
You can't get everywhere right away, but it takes time. It takes change management, takes people. You know.
Yeah, and so that makes sense. Like when you're talking about resources, right? Like where are you seeing the maximum impact in GTM today with AI, right? Like is it content generation? Is it all the AI SDRs which are like reaching out with personalized messaging? Uh, like which areas do you think are getting disrupted faster than others?
If I would pick one, I would say responsiveness,
Right,
speed of follow up,
right.
with customer questions
Hmm.
versus making them wait days to hear something, because that often really helps um, build relationships faster if a company is following up. And when you look at BDRs and SDRs, AI can do a lot of the follow up they may not have time to do, and
Right.
so they can focus on higher value things that come their way. But I would say responsiveness versus just productivity. If you're talking about um, revenue and bookings increases, I think that's pretty
Very,
significant.
very interesting. And you're saying that's across the board, right? Like that's not just customer success. That's AI, SDRs, BDRs, AEs, everyone.
Yes, I
Right.
think so.
Interesting. And any leaders you see in that space, like any tools which you would recommend?
Well, I know Sixth Sense is really focusing on it. There are other companies I saw on my travels. I don't remember the names of all of them. I think HG Insights is one. There's another one. I can't remember the name right now that had a common name, but they were doing amazing things.
No
Um,
worries. So I got the idea. What about like content generation?
AI is really
SEO,
powerful. AI is very powerful for that.
right?
I'm even as a solopreneur, I'm generating a lot of content, some of which I use AI to help me with drafts, but I always look at it carefully and I always make changes to it. Um, the other thing I'm seeing, even as a solopreneur, I've gotten a few customers that found me on ChatGPT searches,
Right.
and I see that I show up in ChatGPT and Perplexity, even as a solopreneur.
Right.
So yeah, so there are a lot of things that it's useful. Just like any other tool, you have to be careful that you use it the right way.
Right. Right. No, absolutely. Alan, recruiting. How do you how do you think about recruiting and how it's changing in this generation right now?
There are a couple of things. I feel sorry for kids that are graduating from colleges now, looking for entry level positions, because I think a lot of those might be replaced by AI. So I think it's incumbent upon students to really learn AI in school if they can, or by themselves, because that's something that's going to be an expectation when they get out. That's the first thing. And I think more experienced people, we need more and more humans that can think differently, that can think disruptively, and question the what if, question why not, question, why are things the way they are. I'll give you a couple of examples. And I just did a series on AI innovation that's on my website in the AI and the resources section. If you looked at Blockbuster, AI would have told Blockbuster to be more efficient creating late fees. They would totally miss the Netflix and everything else that happened there. Wouldn't get it. If Eastman Kodak used AI, it would tell them about more productive ways to sell film. I mean, Kodak had the initial patents on digital photography, but it was too much of a threat to their value proposition to take it seriously. So, um, you need humans to think differently, think what if, think disruptively. It gets back to sustaining versus disruptive innovations. If you look at um, Joseph Schumpeter, who was in the 19th century, an economist, and then Clayton Christensen, looking at disrupting what exists, you have to keep thinking that way. The other thing I think AI can help with, but not replace, is figuring out the right ideal customer profile. I think that is just, if you're talking go to market, I think that's where it all starts. And I see that as an issue with different companies thinking they have an ideal customer profile, but not being consistent across functions, or having ICP governance, so they know what to say no to. And they think not just of acquiring new logos, but they think about retention and growth of their customer base. So they want, you want customers you can get more easily, you can keep, and you can grow. Those three things. And you have to, look at win-loss ratio, gross revenue retention, net revenue retention. And as long as you're bringing on profitable businesses, the ones that are most successful have a net revenue retention of over 120%. But a lot of things have to happen to make that happen. So a lot of times when I begin working with a private equity portfolio company, one of the first questions I ask about is churn. If they have a churn issue, I like to dig behind that as quickly as I can, because that can fix a lot of things.
That's great advice. What are some of the KPIs final question, we are just on time. What are some of the KPIs you report to the PE partners when you take over the CMO role?
Lifetime value to customer acquisition cost. It's not just about reducing CAC. It's about increasing LTV to CAC, or customer lifetime value to customer acquisition cost, which you need to look a little more long-term at what your, longevity of relationships typically are. I look at churn. I look at gross revenue retention, net revenue retention, win-loss ratio, and then there's some brand metrics I like to look at. Also, look at pricing power, the ability of the company to price, and what the presence is. How many deals are we part of versus not part of in our ICP?
Right. Great. Thanks, Alan. This was super informative. Look forward to being in touch. But I think a lot of golden nuggets out here.
Same here, Karan. Thank you very much. It was great spending time with you.